Okay, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your positions on any one of the three bills.
I'm State Representative Fred Kessler, and among many people, I believe that we need to do things to improve public education in the city of Milwaukee. My major concern with the legislation that was offered by the governor and that's sponsored by Senator Taylor and Representative Cologne is it doesn't cover the entire system. I'm a believer that if you really want to improve the educational opportunities of children in Milwaukee, you also have to improve the education that is being given to them by the voucher schools. 20,600 students in MPS in the city of Milwaukee are attending voucher schools. We probably have another 8,000 or so who are actually being educated in suburban schools under the open enrollment plan, and we have 2,200 kids who are being educated in suburban schools under the 220 program. We get another 700 kids in from the suburbs who are going to be educated in the public schools here in the city of Milwaukee. But basically what we've done is we've probably excluded good 30% of all the students from some sort of improvement and some sort of effort to improve the quality of education here in Milwaukee. We don't have the slightest idea of the quality of the choice schools. There are no uniform tests. There's no opportunities for parents, for instance, to evaluate which school to send their children to if they're looking at a choice school. Every year, MPS publishes the test results, but the choice schools do not publish test results. So what you end up having there is people blindly going into school choice, assuming that it's a better education, but we really don't have the slightest idea. So if I'm going to vote for a bill, I need a bill that does the following. I need a bill that provides complete control over all aspects of Milwaukee school education, at least that which is publicly funded. And the choice schools are publicly funded, MPS is publicly funded. So I need to have them all under the same wing or under the same type of system. I'm prepared to say you may continue to operate your choice schools, but I think if you do that, I think there's a couple of other criteria that I feel is important. First, I feel that they ought to be required to take kids with special needs. One of the serious problems we have in MPS is over the last probably 8 years, as choice enrollment increased, 12% of the MPS kids 8 years ago were special need kids. Now it's 18%, probably close to 20%. When you have a system like that, how in the world can you expect that you're going to make this quantitative improvement that seems to be underpinning the desire to have the mayor take over? I don't think you can do that without expecting things to fail. I was very troubled when I saw they're comparing with Boston and Chicago and New York and a couple of these other cities. We have no idea if they have, for instance, open enrollment programs, if they have metropolitan integration, and I know they do not have voucher systems. So what you're doing is you're saying Milwaukee with 30% of its kids gone, and it's 30% who have parents who are activists, because kids themselves don't make the decision to go to a open enrollment school or to a choice school. If you're 5 and 7 and 9, those decisions are made by your parents. They aren't made by you. And so what we end up having is we've sucked out a lot of the activist parents, taken them out of the system. We've left behind a disproportionate number of special needs kids. We have still some very good schools. I mean, I'm proud when I saw the rankings of the 29 top high schools in Wisconsin to find 3 of them, 10%, are MPS high schools, including Rufus King, which was number 1, the Milwaukee School of Languages, which was number 5, and the Riverside School. I mean, we outranked Whitefish Bay. We outranked at least one of the Brookfield schools. We outranked Wauwatosa. We outranked Shorewood. We outranked all these North Shore schools. I mean, I think number 3 in the state was Marshfield, where the Marshfield Clinic is with all the doctors' kids. I mean, we've got some good schools. Those are never talked up. I was very instrumental 30 years ago in starting the German immersion school. I was a judge at that time, and I worked with then school board member Leon Todd. My dad was president of the German American Society's group. My wife had been a law clerk for Judge Reynolds, who was hearing the case, and John Gronowski was a man I knew from serving in the legislature when he was tax commissioner. We were able to lobby them to set up all these language immersion schools. We've got these good schools. I think when we look at this, we're looking far too critically at some of these schools, but the reform that we need, and there's no question we need reform, can't be done with just the current MPS system. We have to include the other school systems which are publicly funded in our community.
That was where I was going to give you one question here, is with regards to your criteria. Do you see it as the issue of being that voucher schools, charter schools, because they're publicly funded, should be held to the same requirements as the public schools traditionally? Is that your linchpin?
Certainly regarding special education, there's no question about that. They ought to be held to that same standard. You can't just cream the best students out of MPS and then say, oh, MPS is failing. And that appears to be one of the things that's happening.
And what is your read on the rest of the legislature? Are they understanding these issues in the same way, or is everybody understanding it from their own lens and their own facts, or or maybe misunderstandings of the Milwaukee school district? Or how do you read the rest of the people?
It's hard to read at this point. I think a lot of the Republicans are not going to vote for a reform because they think it will help Mayor Barrett in his drive for becoming governor. And I want to say this. I'm a supporter of Mayor Barrett. I just made a substantial contribution to his campaign. I think he'd be a great governor, but I disagree with him on this proposal. And so I don't want anybody to think I'm coming here being critical of the mayor and his competency, or I'm arguing why he should not be governor. He should be governor in my mind. And so this is not anything personal about it. This is an issue-oriented concerns that I have.
It's interesting because just to follow, because what you just said has a ring of truth to it, that in fact what's been talked about is this mayoral takeover being just about the kids, but you just introduced there's all this other political stuff in the works as well about, oh, should we support this or shouldn't we support it, depending on political, capital.
Well, I have to say, I think it is just about the kids. And that's why I can feel comfortable supporting him and still opposing this legislation. Because I would like to see a reasonable alternative presented. I'm working on trying to draft a reasonable alternative. But that doesn't diminish my support for the mayor.
Okay, thanks very much for this impromptu interview.